an insightful, even revelatory account of early American democracy 180 degrees removed from the world he knew. Perhaps because he was not simply an aristocrat, but a dispossessed aristocrat, belonging to a class no longer with a stake in or promises to be gained from history. So removed he could witness the parade of other players with a detachment that is rare but perhaps not impossible, and which may under certain conditions allow for unusual levels of clarity. In Cossia's novel, Age of Iron, Miss Curran is a dying South African white liberal and final name of apartheid. Always an intellectual opponent of the regime, she finds her single attachment and condemnation equally of brutal whites and uncouth blacks, challenged by the regime's barbarism in her backyard, which she can no longer neglect. Her sudden shadow awakening, the question of how to live, finally, leads her to the most quixotic act of terrorism, a wish to end her life in heroic flames in a plea for instant resurrection. But she quickly realizes this is not how to live, but only how to die. Learning how to live is a much lengthier and ultimately demanding process, involving the surmounting of the defense of a meaningless world, and in which all the questions conclusively deferred by heroic death have to be faced. But she addresses them, and comes to her end profoundly changed from when we first meet her, able to die with at least an inkling of having lived. In the final interrogation of impossibility, I want to consider the grounding for the other forms of possibility in the subject, the author, the self. 3 of the 4 greatest modern novels, the aforementioned Faustus and Recovery of Lost Time, as well as Moby Dick, an impossibility of the whole self. These novels strangely locate that impossibility, or perhaps the symbolic moment of recognition of the impossibility, in a single traumatic incident. Adrian's infatuation with the prostitute Esmeralda, Marcel's black night as a boy and his mother spent the night in his room, and Ahab's loss of his life to the great white way. This necessary and yet impossible wish, to quote Derrida, for full self-realization sets up all that follows as futile quests, in which the journey toward narcissistic wholeness, I am I, is replaced by endlessly repeated impulses and acts of compensatory narcissism, wish fulfillments that substitute fantasized completeness for the now recognizable and undeniable reality. For the novelist, this subconscious compensatory narcissism by individuals, no questions to the late modern era, helps us account for the psychic roots of American imperialism, 20th century fascism, empty romanticism, and ultimately for all forms of possibility constituting postmodernism. Derrida explores the terrain in his essay Autoimmunity on the 9/11 attack on the World Trade Center. In very brief summary, he argues such an attack, involving the collapse of entities of primitive narcissistic and pure evidence, is an irreparable trauma, rendered subject incapable of carrying on toward the future. As with proofs, the future is not either the space of the original enactment of such fantasies, ending invariably, inevitably in failure, or it is not. That is, it is nothing. Once shattered, the subject is consigned to as the unplate for repetition compulsion, illustrating imagination and preparing anything possible. And yet the impossible, narcissistic development is necessary, and the result is the permanent condition of mourning, loss, rage, depression, and futility. What would radical interrogation of this final dynamic regarding primitive narcissism entail? In fact, this is the strenuously tested ground separating protein cycle acid and transformative psychodynamic accounts for results of recruitment and beyond. This is the domain on which the soul for a new beginning must be waged. This is the future of liberatory psychopolitics and transformative social vision, the development of new narratives, authorities, selves, and communities. This is psychology of postmodernism and the posits of traumatic break, developed by Lacan, the postmodernists, with primitive narcissism as a passageway for maturation and social adaptation. But it is a form of self-sacrifice. Maturation is not development, because authentic internal growth ceases at that point of rupture, replaced by projected idealizations, inherent trajectory authors, substitute gratification, wish fulfillment, sublimation. All of these forms of substitution, as gift development, in a false world of simulated objects and desires. In this world we have the spectacle of those who don't know how to live, and can barely enunciate find out. Not all for living like Mrs. Curran realizes in her 70s that she was raised to be a hollow doll. The narrator in Surfacing, whose head is radically disconnected from her body. The narrator in Zen, the art of motorcycle maintenance, an inauthentic, unknowing not self, who carries his displaced real self deep within the layers of denial and amnesia. In Rousseau's terms, driven by vanity, apropos, the wish to adapt in face of self-love and words of swap, condemned to live in the cave, beset by the shadows of things whose reality cannot be discerned. In Marcuse's terms, the repressed and repressively sublimated false and socially constructed hero, not I, has replaced the self in this process of combination. The ultimate question, then, is whether the narcissistic level of the self is possible, when the last of primitive feelings of narcissistic confidence prevent the collapse of self-inevitable submission, that is self-willing of self-defeat, even without first social pressure, from being convinced of the sheer impossibility of narcissistic wholeness. Perhaps the scenario of duty occurs because the subject is only internalized the repressive matrix. It's the demands for self-repression. Perhaps it is no obedient child who is from the sacrificing, by willing its own self-sacrifice by itself, as if it will matter like that, be accomplished enough from quickly. The different tellings suggested by Rousseau and Emerson and Whitman, Warren, Pearson, Fromm, Marshall, and others, are perhaps without the gateway to healthy narcissism. There are some factors here. Let's take the personal one. That's lost. It offers a traumas that have missed contemporary conception of the human. Copernicus, Darwin, Freud. The last birthday, which is on the subject. We rethought this in terms of this is hers, this is live. A lost book and a lost South African society. Because as students meditate, why did she decide to live? Because the students meditate to set things right. To set what right? To South Africa, my South Africa. To set my life right. To not die having fooled myself perpetually. Fooling others, perhaps. But why does neglect oneself? A narcissistic blow which one I, who knew what I was doing all along, cannot recover. Suddenly, the class remembers Spector's marks. It begins with Hamlet playing. The time is out of showing, and I must set it right. I must set myself for right. Such a narcissistic self-elevation leads to new relation to one's times. Rather than our spend on body to construct the ultimate contemporary narcissist, lonely, living alone, no companions because of its insistence of creation and its management is his, all his, doesn't how to live on the far side of realized existence of itself, other wills, other purposes, other dreams of their own, which traumas and awakening can bring to us. Perhaps our depression in this area is our sympathetic empathy with our God's agony at the loss of his primitive fantasies, his own World Trade Center. But our task is to go on from there. If so, we would be further along. Because the politics of wholeness presupposes an attentiveness to the forms of human development which enable each of us to become self-authors with their need systems and connectivity. Not in political theory after the but we have to make what you think. This national is not how. Better less we get. Postmodernism arose after 1970 realizing that all is permitted. That is, not that all can be accomplished, but there is no inherent transcendental reason for not trying anything. This in effect collapsed systems and claims for essential meaning, very little meaning itself. In recasting meaning finally after transcendental, the issue is not what's permitted in the absolute sense, but what possibilities not there can be realized and which are worth realizing. This imposes upon us the task of both shaping and clarifying viable forms of community, freedom, equality, social justice, and the like. The clearing away of the 20th century thus gives to political thought a powerful and renewed life. A shared and meaningful world can, of course, be radically possible. For it is never yet complete. But part of the developmental process is in terms of our doubts about our journey, our capacity for grounding, for wholeness, and for connection, the ability of the future, and to determine our radical capacity to discover how to live. After postmodernism, with our absolute scripts, there are only constant promises to achieve, not as a compensation, but struggles for completeness. Finally, the achievement of a fit world for our healthiest visions of self and society.
Hi, I'm Colonel Farr from the University of Kentucky. I want to begin by expressing my gratitude to the officers of the ISTC and to Abby and Rick for sponsoring us. I've told several of you and we've all agreed that we've had a great time and learned a lot. Even the list continues to grow. So I have a lot to do. On my paper, I also wanted for being here to sort of share with me my own theoretical struggle. My paper is entitled "Another Note on Dialectics, Getting Beyond Modern Political Paralysis." And some of you will notice the title sort of play on Marcuse's preface to the 1960 edition of Reason of Evolution called "A Note on Dialectics," and that will be coming up later in the paper. So the introduction, rethinking the political role of the ruins of history. Despite its very important contributions to critical thought and emancipatory theory, postmodernism has to some extent become its other. The flight from totalizing systems and master narratives wherein all difference undergoes erasure has ended in a totalizing, ongoing deconstruction, not just of oppressive systems, but also of emancipatory hope. Destroyed by the postmodern storm is not just the alleged legitimacy of totalizing systems that have sanctioned various forms of oppression and repression, but also the mechanisms for resistance and liberation. In this paper, I will attempt to establish what I think is useful in postmodernism, while trying to get beyond the political paralysis of the same. For the critical moment, I will argue that Marcuse offers more of political social change than postmodernism. I will show another hegemonic discourse that derails progressive movements. And this paper is an attempt to create a much-needed conversation between the work of Marcuse and postmodernism. I'm reading Benjamin's ninth thesis on history. The thesis goes as follows. A Klieg painting named Angelus Novos shows him looking as though he's about to move away from something he's been contemplating. His eyes are staring. His mouth is open. His wings are spread. This is how one pictures the angel of history. His face is turned toward the past, where we see a chain of events. He sees one single catastrophe which keeps piling wreckage upon wreckage and hurls it in front of his feet. The angel would like to stay, awaken the dead, make whole what has been smashed. But a storm is blowing from paradise. It comes with such violence that the angel no longer clothes them. This storm irresistibly propels him into the future to which his back is turned, while the pile of debris before him grows skyward. This storm is called progress, end quote. This thesis is one of the best descriptions of the human condition in all of literature, philosophical or otherwise. There are three particular points that I would like to unpack for this particular project. In fact, there are three unique narratives, perspectives, or subject positions embodied in this thesis. The angel is trapped between two incompatible and almost incommensurable narratives or social realities, wherein one requires the other for its existence.